Good evening and welcome to Community Forum. I'm your host, Byron Campbell. My co-host, of course, is Chris Diali. Chris, good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Byron. Good evening, and good evening to our viewers and listeners. We're happy to be here again another Wednesday to chat and discuss some of the issues around us and in the Grenada community as we see it.
Yeah, the week seems to go so fast, Chris. It's
Yes,
like
it does.
amazing, that turnaround is. But happening, Chris, Madonna Harford, stalwart in the trade union and struggle for workers, passed a couple of days ago.
Yes, a loss, I think Robert captured it well, is a significant loss for us.
Yeah.
Not only in the trade union movement, but she was a lady that offered a lot of services, cared about people, when they have people come to her and chat, and she listened. So I know she was certainly one of the stalwarts. I had years sitting with her on different committees and boards, and she was really an excellent individual to know and to get to understand. Both she and, I didn't think you mentioned...
Monica Joseph,
First
first woman judge in the Eastern Caribbean.
That's right.
Yes.
These are
significant,
two
yes.
stalwart women that
Absolutely.
have made significant contribution to our society. And we talk about breaking glass ceiling. These women were some of the pioneers in breaking the glass ceiling for women to elevate to high positions and to be able to contribute at the highest level in our country. So I think, we must pay a tribute to them and say, thanks for all what they have done for the Grenadian community and our people. And, we extend condolences to their families.
Absolutely,
And,
absolutely.
And prayers to them as, and may their souls rest in peace.
Definitely. Worth mentioning, worth noting,
Yep.
given the significant contribution these women have made to Grenada's development and to people's development generally. As we talk about labor, Chris, of course, we have an ongoing labor dispute with NCB, Republic Bank, NCB. I'm going back too far, Chris. Republic Bank and their workers, and of course, it's still on. I was in a bank yesterday, 2.5 hours. Of course, you have workers who are substituting for my information is that contract workers that are filling in this position, but the delays are. So it's important, given the importance of this financial institution, that we find a quick solution. But relating to that, we had a statement by the Prime Minister on the matter. It would be useful if we can hear that statement, Chris, so we can have some comments on it.
And our proposed amendments will include the following. 1, we will set a 30-day limit by which the Office of the Labour Commissioner must hold a mediation meeting between an employer and an employee whenever either side raises a dispute or a grievance or a conflict between a trade union or an employer and an employee. 2, we will eliminate sending any disputes to the Minister of Labour. The Minister of Labour is a politician. The Minister of Labour oftentimes holds other portfolios and is frankly too busy or too uninterested to adequately and effectively and in a timely manner address grievances or complaints by employees.
Chris, well, a couple of things here, quickly. I mean, this is a clip, of course, of the entire statement, but we just want to pick up a few things. The first one is a 30-day proposed limit for disputes, that it must go to mediation within 30 days, essentially. What's your take on that? I mean, in the context, Chris, you are still active in the as an employer. Sorry. So these are matters that are close to you.
Yes.
What's
I think
your take
the
on
Prime Minister's suggestion of amendment to the 30-day limit is a positive one. Although I didn't hear you mention conciliation and mediation, I'm not sure, because you go to conciliation and then mediation.
Okay, there's a first stage.
There's a first stage, and normally the Labour Commissioner handles the conciliation. If he or she cannot get a resolution at that level, then they send it to mediation. Normally the mediation is the Minister. So I hear what Prime Minister is saying, so I suppose the law have to be adjusted to facilitate that change. But the 30-day thing is a good thing in that it brings a level of efficiency and immediacy to matters that come up in labor. And some of these matters could be significant in terms of how they affect worker, employer, employee, and needs to be addressed quickly. What I didn't hear him talk about Well, the part about eliminating sending to the minister. We need to
the
understand.
minister is uninterested or is too busy.
Yeah, I don't know if that is a valid excuse. I think the thing about 30 days and getting the matter come to mediation or whatever we deal with, we have a strong mediation climate in Grenada and what we do in mediation. So what has to follow up with this, of course, is who are going to be mediating these matters outside of the Labour Commissioner, if the Labour Commissioner is not the one to mediate. So these are areas that we have to look at. But I think what is even more concerning for me is the Prime Minister didn't address this, is the issue that happens with essential services. Because the law caters that if we have an issue in essential service, the matter could be taken immediately by the Minister of Labour to arbitration. Why? Because essential service. So can you imagine we have a matter on the airport
or the hospital,
and the air traffic controllers decide they're on strike. Listed as they cannot stay there for too long because the whole airport and the country indirectly will be shut down. So the issue has to be how quickly can we get arbitration done if you are essential services and we invoke the law. And the problem we have had in the past with arbitration, sorry Byron, is that we have difficulty and it takes a long time for the sides to agree who are the arbitrators. So we had suggested a few years ago we must have a standard pool of arbitrators that parties in a dispute could come to the pool and say we want Byron or we want this.
It's the same way you have mediators in the legal system.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. And that way you get a quick response to mediators and arbitrators so that they could deal with the essential services matter quickly. And that way, once you go to arbitration or the essential service has to come back. The strike has to end because the matter now goes to arbitration, and then the matter could be dealt with quickly in arbitration. So I think he needs to go a little further in this matter.
Is there a conflict of interest? The fact that the de facto situation is we have the Attorney General is also the Minister of Labour. So is that? But I think what stirred a lot of commotion or discussions is that the minister is uninterested. Is too busy to deal with that matters. I think it came over, that didn't come over very nice. Let's move on. Chris, one of the issues I want to raise here, before we go to a special guest, and it's not too early to say we have a special guest, we can tell our viewers tonight we're dealing with Spice Mass. We have the CEO of Spice Mass will join us. But before that, Chris, I want to mention Grenlec. You know, I saw this, not in the news, but in an ad. Grenlec provided as its corporate support the refurbishment of Maribor Agricultural Training School. And I think that, for me, that's a big deal. You know, and I just want to compliment Grenlec for this. They have this special fund that they give this kind of support because this is an important institution in Grenada. And lately, I saw it probably a couple of months ago. It was in poor condition. So this input there from Grenlec, I just want to note it. Chris, one of the things that bothers me a bit is the level of alcohol consumption in Grenada. We are the 5th highest in per capita alcohol consumption in Latin America and the Caribbean. That's 33 countries. Our consumption level is, and this is pure alcohol, 9 liters per year. And let's compare this to Trinidad and Tobago, which is 6.5, or Cuba, 6.3. We are high, 5th highest. Of course, Barbados is the highest in the in this hemisphere at 10.4 liters, pure alcohol. But at 9, it is high, it is very high for us. And I'm concerned about it, particularly with the carnival season coming up. The advertisements are there. It's sexy to get high, drunk on alcohol. This is an issue that, of course, we'll find time to talk about it, but it bothers me. The level of alcohol
I would say this quickly, Byron. I don't think the problem started yesterday.
Yeah.
We have always been a country that consumes significant alcohol. Remember, in days gone by, we do a lot of babash. Babash is still being made and consumed, and babash in a rural economy who can't afford things like this standard rum from the rum producers, you have a significant amount of that being done. And our culture and our socialization from the years gone past to now, that the only way, or one of the ways that we celebrate is to drink alcohol, drink to the extent of getting drunk and, you know, conducting yourself in unruly manners. But I think in recent time, what we have seen in that in the past it was mainly men gathering and drinking in social conditions, shops, etc., by cooks and so. But now we've seen a lot of alcohol ads not attacking, but
targeting
women.
young women.
Right, and
It's
young
sexy,
women are
and
that.
young women, yes.
And you see a lot of young women drinking a lot of the lighter, like the beers and the lighter drinks that they have. So this whole concept of introducing light alcohol through the various types of drinks that they have available is to target the women. And of course, more women being more independent, drinking more and having more. So I believe that contributes to the figure that we're seeing. And it's not only Grenada, I think generally in the Caribbean region.
Yeah.
We are big rum producers.
Eastern Caribbean consumption is quite high.
Yeah, I mean, big rum producers. You have Mongi in Barbados, you have El Dorado in Guyana, and we have
Guyana consumption level is lower than us. I could tell you that, although they have a high production level, but they have a lower level of consumption.
Yeah, and some of these things, you know, so yeah, I like you, I think the real issue is our young people. And because, you know, we have a local slang, you know, you drink penny halfpenny rum and you pay 10 cents drunk. So, you know, it's an issue.
And it's inexpensive. I mean, is there an opportunity here for government to increase the taxes on alcohol?
Well, they just did.
They just did.
Maybe
it's not enough.
Yeah, Prime Minister did say, I think in the last budget or in the budget that was presented, that they were increasing the alcohol content tax on it. I forget the exact term now. But it just did, because he said the effects on our hospital services and the reason you need to fund, because we just,
there's a health issue there also. Chris, before we go on to our special guest, corporal punishment. And I say this in that there is a fight to end flogging in our judicial system. And I want to credit Jerry Edwin, because he's been championing this cause, making the point that it's a slave law. It's something that was established during colonial time. In fact, Britain abolished that law in its own country as far back as 1943. We continue to have it in our books. For what purpose? It is a slave law. It discriminates. I can tell you how. You steal 2 coconuts, you get flogged. You steal $100,000, you get a slap on the wrist. You know, it is the fact that it's a slave law. And that's its origin. That's, as Edwin put it, it is part of the slave laws, part of from the slave books. We need to get rid of it, Chris. What's your view on this?
With greatest respect to Attorney Jerry Edwin, I think he's going after emotions. And why I say that is because punishment in law is put on the books to get people to think twice about why they want to commit or do a crime or break a law. So it is not there just for the particular punishment, but it's there as a mechanism to stop people from engaging. So that is why you have incarceration, imprisonment, and so forth. And in times gone by, we had hanging for people who commit murder with intent and so forth. So it is not only about what is a slave law or not a slave law. I think it's there to say to people, listen, if you commit a certain crime or you do it with intent, there is a punishment method that may tend to want to make you think twice and not go there. So like you said, if a man steals, what was it you said, 2 beers?
Chris, what I'm saying is the poor that suffers.
The poor?
This is inhumane and it's a barbaric treatment. In other words, this is we're the 21st century, Chris.
Well,
poor people are the ones that get flogged. You ever hear of any affluent person, major crimes get flogged? No.
Yeah, well, we could argue, and I would agree with you that probably those who end up in prison are normally on the lower end of the economic ladder for some reason, and those very rare you will hear a white-collar crime man getting incarcerated because he has the best lawyers to defend him, and then what he gets off with is remedial punishment. But the issue is, I believe, if a man was to steal 2 beer and he get 1 lash, the man who steals 100,000 should get 10 lash.
Origin is from slavery. That's the point, Chris. It's origin, and slavery has been abolished. Why do we have this law?
That's the point I'm making. Look at how emotional you get.
Yes, I'm getting emotional. I'm agreeing with you. We're going to bring Jerry on here.
The slavery issue.
We're gonna.
But it's not, in my view, slavery had nothing to do with this. This is about whether is the punishment is deserving or not, or whether it is inhumane or not.
It's inhumane and it's barbaric.
Right, and that is why some countries...
So we differ, right?
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I wanted these tires that we put in the road now that becomes roundabouts.
Yes.
We had them in Woodlands and we have and so on. And recently there was an accident on one of them. One party didn't give way to the traffic rule and law that gave way to traffic on the right. And when the matter went to court, it was that the defending lawyer, the defense said, well, where is the roundabout? He asked the prosecuting police. So he said, yeah, the thing in with the tire. So the defense lawyer asked, well, show me in the books where that is stipulated as a roundabout, and he couldn't, and the case ended there in favor of the defense. So I'm just saying that we do things in the country. We put up signs, we put up no parking and so on. We don't put them in the books. We don't gazette them as being places and so on. And I just say, you know, for Carnival coming, there's going to be a lot of restrictions in terms of where you go, how you park, and so on. And of course, we have our guests that's going to come and talk about that. But it's something that the police needs to pay attention. We have 2 signs on Lucas Street now. One to go up Old Fort in peak traffic between certain hours, and they have the other one I have a problem with is the one that's supposed to be for Woolwich Road. Yes. But you're not sure if it's Woolwich Road because it's on Lucas Street Road. And it's saying from 7 to 5. From 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and which I think is onerous, because peak traffic don't exist from 7 to 5.
No, there's a break in between, obviously.
Right. So.
Viewers, we have to take a short break now. As noted, when we're back, we'll be here with our special guest from the Spice Mass Corporations. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Concerned about your general health and wellness?
Do you need to know your complete blood count, lipid profile, or HbA1c?
Maybe you need to get a renal, thyroid, or liver function test.
Interested in STI screening for HIV, syphilis, herpes, chlamydia, or gonorrhea?
All of these tests, plus hundreds more, are available at Allied Laboratories.
Allied Laboratories welcomes you. You can find us here on Gladstone Road in Grenville, in the building next to Calico, on the 2nd floor, adjacent to Dr. Isaac's office. Or you can find us here on Grand Anse Main Road, adjacent to South Winds, opposite the entrance of Excel Plaza. Contact our Grenville branch at 410-3488 or 419-1588, or send us an email at alliedlabgrenville@gmail.com. You can contact our Grand Anse branch at 403-3488 or 404-3488, or send us an email at alliedlabstgeorge@gmail.com.
Fit for life and Allied Laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
Welcome back, viewers, and we now at the stage where we're going to be introducing our special guest, Mr. Cecil Noel. And I'll just give you a quick background on Cec. I mean, I call him Cec, knowing him over the years. I knew him through Cable and Wireless and Grentel, and he served many positions, worked for that company for 30 years in management and senior management, handling from marketing to sales and communication levels. But the most interesting thing about Cecil is his other activities in the realm of music. And he has been part of the Steel Orchestra from St. Paul's, Comancheros for many years, 30 years as a matter of fact, in all aspects of the band development, I would want to say. So Cec is now the CEO of Spice Mass, and we have him here in this capacity to talk about Spice Mass and its readiness and what is going on. Now, like a secret, I didn't know Cec was so involved in the religious and gospel part of his life that I see here. So, Cec, welcome to Community Forum. It's a pleasure to have you. And we want to talk Carnival, as you know. This is the time and the season for it. So, we're happy to have you.
Well, thanks for the invite, and I'm really happy to be here. And good night to the viewing and listening audience as well. So,
Spice Mass 23, the evolution.
Yes.
Tell us what is evolutionary about 23 Spice Mass.
Right. Evolutionary in the sense that we are taking some rather bold steps, if I may say, to do things a bit different. When I say different, it's all about a start, because with the evolution, it's not going to just stop in 2023. I'm hopeful that it will go on. So with that bold step, you know, some of the things that we're looking at, for example, and I will hit it off from the very onset, is what makes Spice Mass unique, what makes it different. So a lot of emphasis this year is going to be placed on traditional mass, because we boast of it as being ours. We boast of it as being unique. We boast of it as being what differentiates us from other carnival. So a lot of emphasis is being placed there, and we're doing a number of different things. In addition to the traditional mass, the whole approach in terms of how we proceed in trying to manage the flow of carnival in terms of the venue operation with time as well as on the street. We are really working hard to try to get and to make a difference in these areas. And one may ask why, but really and truly, we see that as one of the key or major aspects that determine the success of Spice Mass. Put it this way, you're going to have the events at the Calypso tents, you're going to have the events at the fixed venues such as the stadium. People will go, they will go. But when we have the events on the street, and I like to refer to it as street theater, if it's not run properly, I think that is when people start saying Spice Mass was not successful. On the other hand, if it's run properly and there's a nice smooth flow, I think we will get credit for it as being a successful Spice Mass.
Well, some of the things you said, for example, when you talk about the evolutionary part of it in a previous setting, you said that you talk about increases in prize money. In fact, you talk about over 10%. You talk about cross the stage. You need to explain that when you talk about cross the stage. What exactly does it mean? Of course, you elaborate in here on more traditional mass, but you've also said sometime previously that, look, you express concern about the state of traditional mass when you look at the past. I mean, what is happening now that gives us the assurance? And I mean, these are some of the things you said. You talk about the best Juve in the world. You talk about the most anticipated in the region. I mean, this is a lot of hype. This is a huge statement, you know. But what gives you the confidence, Cecil, that 23, the evolution Spice Mass, will be the difference, and you'll have traditional mass featured?
Well, I can tell you why I would say so.
Yeah.
The groundwork that is being done presently with the traditional mass, I think once we continue on that path, we would see difference, we would see change. And I like to say difference and change because, as I stated before, 23 we're going to start. 24, God's willing, we hope to see improvement. So in the case of the traditional mass,
And traditional mass here, we're talking about Shortney, Veko,
Jab Jab, Wild Indians, Jab Jab, yes, we're talking about Maypole Dance and all of those.
Yeah.
And I'm listing them, but I'm telling you, what we want to do and what we're aiming at is to work closely with all of these various aspects of the traditional mass. I'm not telling you you're going to see all of them. I'm not telling you you're going to see great numbers of all of them, but I'm telling you, the present that we expect is going to highlight that this is something we need to hold on to. And the reason why I'm saying all of this to you, most of these masks have been dying over time. So as a young boy in St. Paul's, I still recall, if I stay by the road, I will see the Wild Indians coming down from St. David's. I will see the Maypole dancers coming down from St. Paul's, St. David's. And I would see all the elements passing through the village. I didn't necessarily have to come to town for that. That has faded away. Now, what we're trying to do is to sensitize the public that, listen, this is something that is unique to us, and we need to try to get it back.
But let me challenge you, because Jab Jab, let's compare the traditional mass to Jab Jab. Jab Jab costs a fraction of what it would cost to pay Shortney. So over the years, you will see people move away from Veko and Shortney because of cost. and just throw some oil or some body paint on them and play jab jab. So you have 100,000 jab jab. We are nation 100,000 jab jab. We had that as one theme one time.
As a hook-line, yes.
Right. So and rightfully so. People come from the region, Trinidad and other countries, to experience that, because it's such a huge part of the Juve. But the other traditional mass gets lost in that volume of people playing jab jab. So how are you guys going to manage this thing about the cost for the average man who, I mean, it costs almost zero to play jab, unless you are part of a jab jab band that you pay $10 or $20 to get some body paint, versus putting out hundreds of dollars to pay shortly.
And part of what you're saying, Chris, it is realistic. And I'm not saying to you that all these monies or huge sums of monies will be pumped into this year. Because what we're doing as we go out, and let me just go back a little bit. So part of what we are doing is going out into the village where the traditional mass the leaders are. Interview them, find out from them the status with regards to the mass band. Where are they? What can be done to help them to develop? So let's say next year, the following year, they could move forward. And we are actually doing some documentaries. As we go along, we have the videographers. So whereas in this case, much money is not directly put into the hands of the traditional mass people, but we are pumping the money to bring up that awareness of the mass, to get people to buy into it. And we are hoping that in so doing, we'll be able to, first of all, have it sustained, and secondly, get a greater interest. So we see more people wanting to get involved in the bands. If a band is presently 10 members now, we're hoping that we could see that increase to 20. And those are some of the...
Subvention.
Some of the plans.
Subvention.
Yes.
And
And
we,
we,
subvention, it can't just be, I mean,
Yeah,
we have not had the best experience with subvention in the
I'm
past.
asking,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
part of
It
Spice
is,
Mass?
it is
providing
part of
subvention?
it. And if you ask me, I will take in front to tell you, I wish it was more, especially for people like traditional mass. Having said that, I would also add that whereas we are doing what we're doing, working assiduously to assist the traditional mass, I believe that there should be greater depth and greater input, for example, from other stakeholders. Well, maybe I shouldn't use the word stakeholders in this case, but other people who need to make a difference. Case in point, I think from a ministerial standpoint as well as that of the cultural foundation, that more emphasis need to be placed. And when I say more emphasis, I'm not just talking about emphasis in speech, but emphasis in terms of what do you do to help these people to sustain what they're doing. I honestly believe more of that needs to be done. And I can't help but bring it up because, for example, what is expected of us at Spice Mass is to put on an event, primarily.
That's right.
And we need to get the personnel, the bands, the groups to put on that event. But if the bands do not exist, for example, if we talk about Maple, if they're not there, we can't get them on the street.
Yeah.
So we are really hoping and trying our best to work with other organizations involved, the Cultural Foundation and so, for each of us to play our part to ensure that the traditional mass grow, it expands, it reaches that pinnacle where people feel proud and justly so boast about it. You look at some of the other islands in the region, and when you hear them talk about our traditional mass, including the jab and our Juve morning, you wonder sometimes, are we taking it serious? Because what they are doing is try to use and implement a lot of what we have here into their own mass.
So traditional mass here will also extend to the Juve bands that come up with picon and satire.
Yes.
To talk about
So the
social
old mass,
issues.
yes,
all
all as the
Those
old mass.
those have disappeared almost totally.
Yes. so
Very
the-
few, you
yeah.
know, and very few patrons come out to.
That's correct. So
and
we have the
really
names
create
like,
satire for that, you know.
yes, the Evelyn Marks of the past.
That's right.
The Cafe Bull of the present, but I'm saying present, still around. And the truth is that these people have such important role to play in terms of, you know, depicting certain elements and some
Politics.
social
issues.
Yeah, social
Yeah,
issues.
social
Yeah, yeah.
issues.
And politics.
So when they are not given that space to do it, it really takes away. It really takes away. So having said all of that, we are working, or we are making the effort to ensure that the traditional mass get a space.
Okay.
So we will have them, let's say, at the St. Mark's Traditional Mass Festival. We are trying really hard to get them down in St. George's, either for the Juve morning as well as to be on the road.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a tough job, I tell you.
Of course,
but we
it
are
is.
working.
But I like the
towards
idea
that.
of seeing it as a not just a one-off things for Spice Mass, but that it has to be worked on throughout the year, and
It
you
got to.
cooperate them with the cultural
Yes.
foundation.
Throughout the years.
Throughout the year, a big part of Spice Mass is money, finance, managing money, managing events. I was looking at trying to see, the last financial statement of Spice Mass, and it went back to 2019, where the auditor declined to give an opinion, for example. But I know, because here you're talking about subvention, you've raised the prize monies for major events like Soca Monarch and Dimash Gra, Calypso King and Queen Show. These events cost a lot of money. Panorama, for example, we know that you don't generate sufficient revenue for prize money, so you need lots. To what extent? Because the private sector is a major contributor to beneficiary, I should say rather, to of Spice Mass.
Yeah.
To what extent?
Seasonal program.
Where is your sponsorship? I mean, previously you had big firms like Grenlec, not Grenlec, but Flow, Lime,
Yes,
Cable and Wireless,
yes.
and all that you'd be familiar with. Where is your sponsorship now? What from your budget? What percentage of that we can say is a private sector supporting in terms of sponsorship? Where is that?
Oh, so in order to answer that, let me say, first of all, as the records show presently, as we work in 2023,
Yeah.
it will take us approximately 4.5, and I'm saying that the figures seem to grow every time
4.5
for
million,
different things.
yeah.
Yes, and with regards to the money we get to put on Spice Mass, it's just about 50% of that. And when I say 50% of that, we have the assistance of the NLA through authorization from government for 1 million. And we have government putting up another million, well, of which it is broken down. You have like 200,000 towards the administrative aspect of the running of the
Events.
office.
Yes, that's correct.
And 800,000 for the actual Carnival events. Now, in the term of sponsors and sponsor, more and more we seem somehow to have sponsorship and the amount of money in sponsorship declining. To the extent that what we've seen is that even in the case where we do have sponsors, we get a lot of what is referred to as in-kind, as
Okay.
opposed to the actual finances. So to put actually a percentage of that, it is significantly low. And again, in some cases, I do not, or I cannot say I entirely put some falter on the sponsors. I think sometimes the whole timing of what we do is significant. You will understand that, Chris, based on your cycle budget, your budget cycle. Depending on when you approach, you just may not be able to do it. So in a similar way as we spoke about the traditional mass is something we need to take care of year-round, I think the finances of Spice Mass is something that need to be taken care of year-round. But more so, I think there need to be some stringent policies put in place that would help in securing some of these finances. As you'll appreciate, some of the businesses that really generate the revenue as a result of us putting on Spice Mass, in a lot of cases, these are some of the organization, businesses that we get either nothing from or very little
Well,
from.
let's look at it. I mean, and I'm going to be upfront on this. You're talking about for alcohol and beer and that category of the consumption of this
Spice.
double spice.
Yes.
Significant.
Yes.
You
We
know,
have a
in this
lot of
time.
visitors coming in that will
I mean,
add to the population.
it's huge,
consumption.
you know. So clearly, what do? We put an additional tax on those.
Let me
I don't know,
intervene
Chris.
when I say this. I mean, from a private sector point of view, I think Spice Mass have failed over the years in coming to businesses, not as Cecil said, in a timely manner. But could you imagine that he gets 50% of $4 million, $2 million from government and
yeah.
other sponsors.
Yeah.
And you're looking to get another $2 million, say, from private sector concerns
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But there is not this professional approach to come to see what is, if I in rum or beer or whatever,
Yeah.
and you want 100,000 from me, I want 200,000 as sponsorship. What am I getting? What is the returns on this investment? It's only for a short period in the year.
Yeah.
So how do I maximize that for you, this sponsor that is giving me? So, you know, when we're doing a sporting event, there's a branding issue that happens. And I know some of these companies will say, okay, that is the only beer to sell in all the events, and they will come to you guys on that. But it has to go beyond that. And it has to make sense to the private sector company that's going to be asked to put in 200 or 300,000. So I could say, okay, I'm giving Spice Mass 300,000, but I expect in that period to make $1 million. So really my net gain is 700,000.
That's correct.
And that's how it has to be presented. And if it's not presented that way, you will find less and less of those of us in the private sector who will get into it. And the in-kind, as you talk about, that is part of it, and you need to balance the two. And I think that is one of the failures of the previous Spice Masters. And what, as you talk evolution, that is one of the evolution that has to happen in terms of sponsorship and how it must be approached and done.
But and Chris, not just sponsorship, but overall collections of funds. Because in some cases, it doesn't necessarily have to be sponsorship. But I mean, as Byron started saying, you can call the name of all the people who really generate serious funds and don't give anything. There must be some form of taxation that will cater for Spice Mass as that premier event. Because it is only as a result of us putting on Spice Mass that these people get the extra. And I'm saying extra because as business, they make the money. But due in Spice Mass, that period, there's absolutely no doubt that they make significantly more.
Because all the promoters, now this is, I mean, you guys probably dodging the word, but the promoters make a lot of money in Spice Mass.
I dodge
and long before the real carnival issue, and a few weeks after as well. So I am saying that yes, but again, you see, it's the approach. The approach has to be such that, and you could probably back it up with legislation in some degree, because there's a lot of legislation regarding carnival, traffic, security, and all of that comes at a certain time when it's pronounced. You guys say from now on until
and so forth.
That's right. So that it takes effect. What I'm saying, Byron, there must be an approach that professionalizes this thing, and it must be done in such a way that people who come out to these private sector companies, these promoters, and whoever gains must be able to say, okay, 5 cents on every dollar comes to you, whatever it is.
With the promoters, because I mean, I look at on the websites and there's so many fets. I mean, you get a percentage from that. Government gets revenue from this. Yes, okay, fine. But let's go to some of the events itself. I was talking to someone, and they said, look, they were there for Monday Night Mass. They left just after midnight, not seeing a band. So you've moved to tell us about the rescheduling or the timing and the traffic, and how are you dealing with those events, particularly for the patrons, you know, like, so tell us about that.
Having done some investigation as that on those issues there, and that's why I mentioned before, we could do what we want in Spice Mass. You see what happened on the road eventually? That's what they're going to judge us. So to answer your question, things like marshals, we have already started engaging marshals. We have ACP John Mitchell, who is the police officer on the board of directors. And the reason why I'm calling his name, this gentleman has been really putting in a lot of effort into this work to make it better than it is. Now, the reason why I'm making mention of this to you, we realize that one of the main elements that affects negatively what happened on the road is that of control in terms of movement and timing. So the plan is to have a marshal and a police officer assigned to every 2 bands. So for example, and the band's supposed to know who that officer or that marshal is. What we're hoping to achieve in that regard is that if the police officer come and said to band number 1, you need to move, whether there are masqueraders behind the truck or not, it is supposed to be moved.
So that is the crux of the problem. Because Monday Night Marshals are a good example, says. I hear you about the marshals and the police and keeping people to move in a timely manner. But those guys will push back and say, oh, there's only 5 people behind my truck in my Monday Night Mass band, because everybody supposed to come, say, 7 o'clock. And they get there at 10. And that is, how do you get people to understand the discipline of 7 to move in time so people could see you guys parade versus coming 10 and you're finishing 1 in the morning.
So maybe I should backtrack. Let's
Yeah.
take it from Juve morning. So what we plan and what we working towards executing is that we're asking people to try to start Juve as early as possible. Be gathered for 4, you can start for 35, and by 9:30 latest, Juve should be finished.
Yeah, you've got 4 to 9.
And when we say finish,
Oh, you're getting
working with the
jabbed up.
police, working with the police again, and along with the marshal, and educating the band leaders and so
That's
forth,
right.
is that when we say shut the music down 9, that is going to be followed through.
Yeah.
And we are hoping it will work. So, and let me just segue a little bit. Up to yesterday, we had a meeting with promoters and DJ. We had approximately 7 of the top ranked police officers there at that meeting together with Spice Mass. And we took the time and liberty to go through them in detail of a lot of these aspects, ranging from security, medical, and everything else, promotion, licensing, what you do. So we are having a conversation, and we hope that by having a conversation, people will see the need to buy into what we're saying and go along with us. So we finish, the music cuts off, 9 o'clock. We believe that people are more likely to move than if the music continue playing.
Yeah,
So
reasonable.
then, and then
Yeah.
we come after that, people are supposed to move and come back in time for the pageant. All right? And there's a set time for the pageant. We say 1, we start 1, and we move on. And there's a cutoff time for the pageant, and people are supposed to go get ready to come for Monday Night Mass. So when we say Monday Night Mass starts at 8, and the police officers say, time to move, it's time to move.
Right, so
And we're really hoping
Yeah.
that it can be enforced. And there are certain things that we have discussed
Okay.
in terms. We have done some little checks in terms of some of the tactics and strategies that people have used in the past. And we have our own way. I mean, working with the
I was
police,
about
and we
to get to
intend
that.
to
I
deal
was
with
about
good
to
to
get
hear.
to that because
Yeah.
I think they really, and I agree with you. If we shut down music, there's nothing to jump and prance to. So
Yeah.
most of the crowd may move.
Yes.
There will be those who will want to challenge, because we see jab. I had an experience in Granans this weekend. Those guys were playing jab in just after the post office, and they blocked the traffic. The traffic became single lane, and now that is not allowed. There wasn't a police around to deal with the matter. So I'm saying we will get pushback, and a lot will depend on the response of the police force to enforce these things. I mean, you need the cooperation of the band leaders, and I agree.
Yeah.
But band leaders in those times will get tied up in all other, you can't find them, and this and that. So the issue is, do we have a plan B that the police will use to say, guys, I told you it was 9 o'clock. You have to shut down 9 o'clock, or else we will shut you down. I mean, it sounds
Draconian, but no,
Need
something has to be done.
firmness, yeah.
And the truth is, for most part, we believe that the educational process is key, and that's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
But of course, it doesn't always come true as we want it to.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Well, it has to start somewhere.
it got to
I agree with
start
that.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So, and simply put, if we do not get all the success we want this year, it is hopeful that the
Next
following
year,
year,
it start to understand.
it start to understand. Because if you're going to come on the road, for example, with your music truck and keep playing your music and not moving, but the truck is playing the music, what do you think? Maybe the music is turned off and it's not allowed to go back on, people see they need to move.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are things that you look at.
Yeah.
But the truth is that, and I know you use the word enforce,
Yeah.
but I really hope it doesn't reach any case where we have to do that. I think my perspective is that we would want people to understand that when we put on Spice Mass, it is really about our culture, our heritage. And the better we do it, the more we cooperate with each other, the better it's displayed, the better the world sees us, the more we enjoy ourselves really.
Remember, it's mixed with alcohol, so it doesn't go logically. Well, we have to take a short break, Chris. Viewers, we'll be right back. Yeah.
Concerned about your general health and wellness?
Do you need to know your complete blood count, lipid profile, or HbA1c?
Maybe you need to get a renal, thyroid, or liver function test.
Interested in STI screening for HIV, syphilis, herpes, chlamydia, or gonorrhea?
All of these tests, plus hundreds more, are available at Allied Laboratories.
Allied Laboratories welcomes you. You can find us here on Gladstone Road in Grenville, in the building next to Calico, on the second floor, adjacent to Dr. Isaac's office. Or you can find us here on Grand Anse Main Road, adjacent to South Winds, opposite the entrance of Excel Plaza. Contact our Grenville branch at 410-3488 or 419-1588, or send us an email at alliedlabgrenville@gmail.com. You can contact our Grand Anse branch at 403-3488 or 404-3488, or send us an email at alliedlabstgeorge@gmail.com.
Fit for life and allied laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
Welcome back, viewers. I'm your host, Byron Campbell, co-host Christy Ali, and we're here with Cecil Nowell. He's the CEO of Spice Mass Corporation, and we're discussing Spice Mass 23 Carnival. Cecil, one question, during the break, this came to mind. Panorama. You have a life in Pan. A life in Pan, but at the same time, we know that Panorama, this event has had its issues, organizationally, financial, low attendance, a year when it didn't come off. Pan was in the park and there was no stage. There was no. What can we expect for Panorama 23? Briefly, Cecil.
For Panorama 23, we're hoping that there will be a good show. We're hoping to have at least 8 of our steel bands participating. And we're hoping that there'll really be a difference. What we are working towards this year is to have the stakeholders, the panmen themselves, being a lot more involved.
Okay.
I can tell you there are plans. How much of it we'll really get through it, but we are really making effort to put on something that is different. We don't want it to just be a case that you come and you hear Pan. We're hoping it could be some form of an exhibit. And again, I'm saying this, I hope the panmen are listening, because there's something we discussed that we want them to help us with. Without going into too much detail, when you get there, you should get a sense of the historical development of Pan, for example. Where we are and how we got there from, if you want to say the Tambu Bamboo, or the first way to make the pans. So I may just say, before we know of making the steel pan from an oil drum. Now you get the steel pan made from a drum that is specifically designed and produced for made a steel pan. So there's a lot in between. The quality, I must say, and I heard you, Byron, but in terms of the quality, I dare say the quality of our steel band in terms of what our rangers give to the players to come through it on the night, I think it's really top class.
Yeah.
I honestly believe so. But I think, and I always make mention of it, they downside it in terms of the attendance. And what we're doing this year, which is similar to what we are doing the traditional mass, is to visit the Pan House. Because we think that if we develop and in some way have some kind of introductory pattern leading out to Panorama, where people could see the bands, some form of interest being stimulated, some interviews. So we are doing some of those. And if you, for example, look at, I know there's one of the TV stations that has one going right now, where there's an interview talking about the Panorama, what we're doing. And we want the steel bands to produce more of these, of course, working with us. We are the one doing it. We working along with them. So it's going to stimulate no interest, because the thing is that the more you hear the pan, We're encouraging people to go to the pan yards as well. We encourage the pan people themselves to make the pan yard not just a place where you just go practice and that's it. Make it a place where people feel encouraged to want to come. Some form of attraction. So you have a bar, you sell some drinks, you make maybe an oil long, you sell it.
Yeah, I like
you
that.
do different things
Well,
and,
I mean,
you encourage that kind of comedy so you get general public to come
I
through.
listened to a young lady tonight when I was coming here, 21-year-old young lady from Comanche Rose, talking of her involvement in the band and since when she started to play and what they do. They train on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays, and every day they come to train. It's not just about playing pan. You may have a session dealing on leadership, how to conduct yourself before you start to get into, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But I will challenge you to say, I think one of the biggest problems we have had with pan, I'm a pan boo, so I go in whether you have pan, I'm going.
Where you going? Okay.
But the
I'm
thing
going.
is-
Haven't listened to Cecil. I'm going.
Yeah, and being married to somebody who works in Republic Bank, who sponsors a band, I have
Right.
to. I'm a tongue man, so I'm back in the tongue bands and I take pause and I go in my each pan yard to find out what it is. But that being said, I just say that management of steel band is an issue. When I say that the organization surrounding, say, Comanche Rose, you want an easy one. And I find that to be so weak in the years gone by, and that has contributed to pan being not as vibrant and as big. So let's take the rural pan sites. The one in River Road, the one in Victoria, the one in, and how they function. Every year they come for monies to buy pan, to tune pan, and these are not cheap things because you have sponsors that traditional sponsors like the banks and the hotels and so on, they will tell you, when this time comes, they ask for $80,000 to $100,000 to support the band. Easy.
Yes.
Because I need more bands, I need more steel pans, whether it's tenor, double tenor, bass. And then you have the issue of the tuning and how to tune and then pay for the pan arranger. There's a lot involved.
Yes.
And says, I believe that you're hearing now that sponsors are getting worried about the climbing costs and what their own pan management of a particular is doing to help with that. And what events will they put out during the year, how they market themselves. You know, coming from understanding the Trinidad context, there's a jazz pan thing festival Trinidad has put on. I'm sure you know about it.
Yes.
And when you hear pan play jazz at that level, you can't believe it's pan.
No.
And we don't do these things to get people interested throughout the year, but I'm looking forward to pan jazz.
And that's part of what we hoping we can get you. But I can't help but going right back because you make mention of it. I mean, when Panorama time come around for Spice Mass, we expect to get bands and they come and put on a show. But there's so much that is required before they reach that stage. Let's take a very important one, pan tuning. We do not have not one ready, quote unquote, qualify or proper tuner in Grenada. What does that mean? We depend and we have to import. It also means the money goes out. All right? The quality of some of the bands, let's say maybe in the rural areas, if I may say that way, is not the same as you get because the cost involved. And I'm hearing you talking about assistance from sponsors, but it's really a kind of double whammy. Bands, in my opinion, also need to make a greater effort to improve themselves. And you make mention of coming all the time because they know they're going to get some form of assistance. And yes, it's good to give them the assistance because, as I said, and I will repeat whenever I get a chance to, you really can't put a cost on the culture. But at the same time, I think we as a culture men, we have to try to help ourselves. Whether it's the steel band, Calypsonians, the mass band. I mean, you talk about the mass band, you need to talk about the bending of wires. What's going on with those? Why don't we have some of these things introduced into the schools?
So that's where the culture. So Cecil, that's where the cultural foundation comes.
That's where they're supposed to come in, along with the Ministry of Culture.
Of Culture, exactly. But Cecil, I know time is running out, Chris, first and all. But we hear a lot of comment about nudity now in Carnival, you know.
Even to get to the music.
I'll leave the nudity here for a while and I'll give way to you to the music.
I mean, the music is such an important part of Carnival.
That's fine.
Whether we have Calypso 10,
I agree.
Soca Monarch. But one of the things that have come, there was a thing on one of the news stations tonight talking about the lyrics and the content.
Yeah.
And it's so, so smutty, there's no effort put into satire in the music and, for people. So, I mean, especially in soca. Now, your fine groovy soca is now, to me, taking over the hardcore soca because there isn't the content that people will go to a soca show and say, this is excellent, the guys perform. It's just about, I don't know, what is your take on this, Cecil?
Well, no, Chris, I have to agree with you. So, for example, last week we did the preliminaries of the Power Soca.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I mean, there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of
It started off at
helping
what,
these.
50 something, and it boiled down to 32 or something like that in the first judging, was Power Soca.
When you say the numbers?
So they had what, 50 something entrants to judge. And when they finished, it was down to 30.
Oh, well, really, we started with Power Soca at 101
Right, okay.
altogether. And it boiled down now to 32.
Right.
And then it's going to go further down to 11. But going back to the music, I believe that a lot of help, a lot of assistance need to be given to the artists in terms of the quality of the lyrics, especially. I'm saying especially because I'm not saying this to mean that I'm satisfied with the musical content. As a musician myself, sometimes it sounds to me like one or two chords or just one.
Exactly.
But in terms of the lyrics, and every time I get opportunity, as I said earlier on, I would say it, we need to think of our lyrics, first of all, let's just use a simple term, being cleaner. And in addition to that, we must be able to tell a story. In my opinion, too often we hear what's going on and we cannot associate it as a story, as something we can follow. And by the way, I'm saying this, and I'm not saying this in any way beating up on the artists, which is why I'm saying they need help. But I think, first and foremost, they too need to appreciate that here, I want to better my craft. I want to do better. Because we do have some of those, and young ones too, who do very well with their writing.
So let me tell you an experience I had as a businessman in the music thing with Calypso and Steel Band. My company used to sponsor Steel Band out of Victoria. And we stopped for one simple reason. When you buy the device to drive with the tenor pans and so on.
Yes.
So you spend, let's say we had spent 50,000 that year just to buy this piece of thing for them to do what they have to do. And then after Carnival, they park it up on the road by the stadium, and it's so
the road stand.
Yeah, the road stand, and it rotted. So that went down, and then next year they come back and they want the next one. So that's why I talk about the management as about fans.
No, but you are correct. You are correct. It happens.
In the music, we will have artists come to us and say, Mr. Diari, could you all sponsor us? We need to cut CDs and there's a cost and so on. And we say, okay, how much you think? And the guy would say, well, he need 5,000, 8,000, whatever the figure. And you give him. And he cuts his CDs. And the next day he comes back and says he wants another 8,000 to do this. So my question was, when you sold those CDs, didn't you put aside anything at all?
So it comes down to management, Chris.
Yes. And I'm saying there's this perception by the artists and so on that every year Carnival come, we are a critical part of the show. The music must be there and up to a standard for people to enjoy themselves. You can't take that away from Carnival. But as you said, what do they do for themselves to promote their own craft and their own creativity? They don't invest in themselves.
Yes, an important point, but I'm getting a signal here that we have to wrap up. But Cecil, final comments on Spice Mass.
Oh, well, we I thought you were going to make it final.
We having the Majga?
No, we are not having the Majga. We are not
having the Majga. We didn't get a chance to talk about the nudity.
But we are looking at the return of the Majga next year in a
the parish events. So we have more we could talk about, but unfortunately we're out of time.
Yes, so as it is for now, I mean, I really want to take the opportunity, first of all, to thank you, gentlemen, for inviting me here. To send that message out, we got to be mindful that we are putting on what's supposed to be a world-class event. By that I mean it's not just singular and just to Grenada, but this is something that we streamline it God. So it's extremely important that whether I span Mass, Calypso, Soca, or Queen contestant, the product, Spice Mass, the product, the event that we putting out, we must make the effort to make it something that is first class, and may I say world class, because that's a viewing audience now.
Yeah.
So all of us need to play a part, whether
you.
as spectators, sponsors, the stakeholders, we got to do it and do it well.
Thank you very much. That was Cecil Noel, CEO of Spiceman's Corporation. On behalf of myself, Byron Campbell, co-host Christy Alley, the technical support staff here at MTV Studios, we thank you very much. Viewers, thank you for being with us. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next week, same time. Bye-bye.